Hello, welcome to the garden. We are actually going to cover today a little bit about this thing, composting. So you see here, people have been asking, how do we compost? Well, you can do it in many different ways. This is a bin that I built. It's just actually 4 pieces of wood with the front that screws off. And at the bottom, down here, you can see I have a little flap which opens up and you can see inside the black gold. This is the compost. One thing you will see in this compost, as an example, you can probably see some of it here, you'll see lots of little bugs, wood lice, ants, lots of wee beasties, and they're doing their job in breaking down all of this that goes in the top. And this on the top is really a good mix of pretty much everything that we use in our house. So you can see here there's some bits of old pumpkin, any old vegetables that we've used in the garden. And then I've covered that with a layer on top of just some stuff that we pulled out of the garden beds that we weeded out. You can see it layers. Compost should always have a good layer. And on the top is the stuff that's breaking down, and you can kind of see here this top layer looks very much like grass, old flowers from the house. And then below that we have a next layer that's just starting to crumble away, and that is not quite fully composted yet. You can still see bits of seed, there's some sawdust in there, and a few other bits and bobs that you can start to see in this layer here, right? But then when you come all the way to the bottom, it looks just like good old soil. So that shows us a very healthy compost pile. It's doing its job. So what goes in that pile, you may be asking, and how do we do that? Well, what we do at our house, we have a little bin for our household waste. It's about this size. You can buy them online. It's got a little clip top on it, and we keep that in a cupboard in the house, just actually under our sink. And in there, that's where we put things like potato peels, pumpkin peels, veggies from the fridge that have just started to turn a little bit. We put some strawberries in there, that type of thing. The other thing that we put in there are coffee grounds. And, of course, because we drink a lot of tea at Chateau Normington, tea bags. Now, there is a trick with these tea bags. You see, you don't want any strings on them because the strings won't rot down quickly. And the bags themselves get very wet and very moist, which can actually inhibit your compost. Because you don't want your compost to be too wet, you don't want it to be too dry. So what you want to do is actually just break open the bag a little bit and pour it in. Now you can either pour it on top like that and then throw the paper in separately, or what you can do, when you've made your tea, you can just crack open the corner of the bag and pour it into your little white pig bin. That's what we call it, the old pig bin. And you break the leaves and the bag away separately that way. Because if you don't do that, what happens, you get a very soggy little lump, and that can really inhibit your compost. Because what we want in your compost is to have heat. We want to have air movement sometimes, but not too much. So it rots down quickly. The other way you can compost is this way, and this is a method we use for really for more like brush, garden waste. And you can see here, this is literally just the soft stuff from the garden, and this is called the open pile method. And all we're doing here is 2 things. We're literally bringing in fresh compost, putting it on top, and we're letting it rot down. There is a little bit of manual work that goes into this, and you can kind of see here is some of that. What we're doing, we've got leaf clippings on top, and you can see it looks very much like leaf clippings, and every 4 weeks we're turning this over and turning it over with a fork. You can see here, this is actually really quite warm. We've got heat going on, and that's helping the compost break down. And then when the rain came, we got some good rain yesterday, what happens is that rain and heat actually causes a chemical reaction to break down all of this leaf clipping, yard waste into significant piles and then into soil. Now, if we just left that and we didn't turn it over, with a garden fork, if we didn't do that, we'd end up just with a slow pile of gloop rather than that nice and brown compost. So what we do, come out, fork it over every 3 to 4 weeks, and that helps the process move swiftly forward. Now I will talk about one little thing that some people asked about. These things. If you drink single serve cups like these of coffee, what you can do, break open the top, pour out these coffee grounds into your little regular waste bin, and you can compost those. Those are fine, but do not throw these plastic things in. Obviously these don't compost, you have to throw these away or recycle them. But pretty much if you take the foil off the top, you can get rid of the grounds and the filter paper from inside, because that will all rot down in your compost. You recycle the plastic, and then all you have to do is throw away that foil. So out of this piece of what will otherwise go in the trash, we've only got a little piece of foil on top that can't be recycled. So we're really minimizing the waste between compost and recycling here, and it's a really impressive thing. So some of you have undoubtedly got questions. Feel free to write them in the comments. One thing I will say, when you're using this method here in a closed bin, to get the layering right, you want to make sure that you're adding complementary materials. So you saw we just put some tea bags in there. Now what we do then, I like to then add some soil on top, and all I'm doing here is just a very thin layer of soil. This helps create a layer on top of that, and you can see there it's actually some old potatoes that are just a bit rotted, and also we've got some garden soil. Very thin layer. Then what we're going to do on top of that, I've got some greens from the garden, just some grass that was growing in the wrong place, and I'm going to push that down, and that there will help that layering process, because those little bugs and those little beasties that we've got that we see roaming around through this compost down here will actually help break this down much faster. So what we're looking for is a consistent layering, and that creates and generates that heat, because everything then starts to rot down and break up much quicker. And some people say, well, you know, you've got bits of old seeds in here, how do they break down? Those break down really well, and the reason they break down really well is because the heat will actually make them inert, and they'll just rot away. So you won't or shouldn't have too many problems if you get enough heat in your pile by layering it through. And you can see there, like I said, we've got some old tea bags that we've taken the tea leaf out of, and those are going to go in there. We've got some greens on there, a bit of soil. And if you find that you don't have a good mixture and it's not going fast enough for you, you can add a very thin layer of sand on top too. That will really, really help. So I know we're coming up to the season where some of you will have leaves. Feel free to add some leaves to this. Just as one ingredient, don't make it all leaves, because that then creates a type of compost stack called a leaf mold stack, and we're not trying to create leaf mold here. We want something to break down very quickly, and this layering method will really help you do that. So if you've got any questions, feel free to ask. You pop a comment in the question box, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thanks very much, and I'll see you all later. I'm off to go have a cup of tea.